for a swift and a full and a speedy recovery, and we stand with him and his family in that regard. President's budget will be released today. It's a forward-looking budget that invests in the health, the safety, the economic well-being of the American people. It's a budget that will strengthen and protect Medicare and Social Security. The president's budget is designed to build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up. The president's budget will reduce the deficit by $3 trillion over the next 10 years, building upon $1.7 trillion in deficit reduction that has occurred over the previous 2 years. We continue to get big things done for the American people to strengthen the economy and to do it in a fiscally responsible way. At the same time, we're still waiting for extreme MAGA Republicans in the House to show us your plan. How do you want to invest in building an economy for everyday Americans? How do you propose dealing with the challenges that you often talk about with respect to the deficit? Are you committed to undermining Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Show us your plan. What are you hiding from the American people? Questions?
So obviously the House has done a lot of work on China recently over the past 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on the leadership kind of making this as a priority, especially with everything we see on the global scale with regards to China?
Well, with respect to China, we're committed as Democrats to competition, not conflict, to working through the challenges that exist with the Chinese Communist Party from the standpoint of manufacturing or climate, as it relates to medical supplies, as it relates to semiconductor chip manufacturing and other critical needs for the United States of America, and a whole host of other issues. But fundamentally, this should be about strategic competition and not conflict, and I think President Biden, the administration, has been very clear in that regard.
Is there a way to do that with also holding them accountable for human rights abuses?
Well, I think we've been pretty clear and direct on the Democratic side as it relates to our concerns related to human rights abuses, and I think we will continue to do that.
Hakeem Jeffries, ladies and gentlemen, next star. The House Republicans seem to also still be going on about the Parents' Bill of Rights they were pushing last week. You had some Republican leaders talking about it yesterday.
Is that markup still happening?
Yeah, it's still going. But what are House Democrats' thoughts on this? Is there a worry that it will possibly pass the House and move on to the Senate? What's your thoughts?
Well, we remain committed to making sure that we provide the highest quality education to every single child in America. That is what the parents of America want. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that our children can learn reading, writing, arithmetic, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, have an education in the arts and in music, have opportunities to play sports, and to develop into well-rounded children who can then become well-rounded adults. That is our position, and we believe that that position is consistent with what the parents of America want. Not right-wing propaganda and culture wars forced down the throats of the American people because of an extreme MAGA Republican agenda. Third row, thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, sure. Last week we had a quick brief conversation about the letter that you and Senate Majority Leader Schumer sent to Fox about Tucker Carlson denouncing the big lie, and your requested he say that on air. Clearly this week that didn't happen. You said you would decide your reaction among your caucus when you got to that, you crossed that bridge when you got to it. You're at that bridge. What are you gonna do?
Well, where we're at right now is that there is bipartisan condemnation for the lies and the conspiracy theories that Tucker Carlson continues to peddle on air. Bipartisan condemnation. It's dangerous, it's dysfunctional, it's disgusting, and I think that Senate Republicans have made that clear. Senate Democrats have made that clear. House Democrats have made that clear. The Biden administration has made that clear. It's clear for the American people. And so the group that has some explaining to do at this point in time are the extreme MAGA Republicans in the House. Do you continue to stand with this particular media personality who elevates dangerous conspiracy theories and rhetoric when the American people saw with their very own eyes a violent insurrection, an attack on the Capitol, the Congress, the country, and the Constitution? That's a question that the extreme MAGA Republicans at this point need to answer.
If that come up though, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to, is your caucus not gonna do interviews? I mean, what are you going to do? You made this letter, now what do you do?
We're going to continue to work to defend our democracy as we have done. And I'm not going to get into a back and forth in terms of what tactical decisions will come next, because that's a collective decision that will need to be made by House Democrats.
So President Biden's budget is very ambitious, but not likely to get through Congress in any meaningful way. So what do you see as the purpose of the budget for Democrats as a messaging document, and do you think it'll factor into the upcoming election?
Well, thank you for the question. It's not simply a messaging document. It's a statement of our values that is on full display for the American people. President Biden has articulated a plan to build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, which is the extreme MAGA Republican plan, which is to, invest in continuing to benefit the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. That is a contrast that should be put before the American people. But in order for that full contrast to be fully clarified, the question that the extreme MAGA Republicans need to answer is, where is your plan? What are you hiding from the American people? They want to have a conversation about the future of the American economy. We want to have a conversation about the future of the American economy. We believe our ideas are defensible. Not only are they defensible, they have worked, which is why you have more than 12 million good-paying jobs created during the first 2 years of the Biden presidency. Unemployment at 3.5%, a 50-year low. More small businesses created during the last 2 years than at any other point in time in recorded American history. Wages beginning to come up for the first time meaningfully in decades, and $1.7 trillion in deficit reduction as compared to what happened during the previous administration, where there were record debts that were put upon the American people, in part due to the 2017 GOP tax scam. So our view is we should have a debate and a discussion about the future. But the only way to actually do that in a meaningful way, where the American people can understand where Democrats are at and where extreme MAGA Republicans are at, is for the Republicans to show us your plan. The House Republican budget plan is in the Witness Protection Program. It's in hiding. Why? Because they want to cut Social Security, they want to cut Medicare, they want to cut veterans' benefits, they want big tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. They want to subsidize big pharma, subsidize big oil, and all the while continue to promote the big lie that the cult leader won the election in 2020.
If I impact for a Biden reelection campaign, those are the arguments he could make in the reelection campaign.
No, I see this as part of the process. And we've always said the first thing that needs to be done this calendar year is that we raise the debt ceiling so that America can pay off the debts that have already been incurred by this Congress. By the way, when you talk about our nation's debt, America, this great country, has been around for 247 years. 25% of the nation's debt was incurred during 4 years of the Trump presidency. And these people want to lecture America about fiscal responsibility? You've got to be kidding me. But if they want to have a conversation, as they're lecturing America, show us your plan. Put it into the public domain. Take your plan out of the witness protection program. I think that it's so extreme that they are afraid to put it in the public domain. Put it on the floor of the House of Representatives. Let's have a debate about it. Put it into the public domain so that House Republican leadership can have a real conversation with President Biden in front of the American people. But they refuse to do it, and that tells us everything we need to know.
In addition to the president's budget coming out, there's been a concerted effort by the White House to address junk fees. They convened some state leaders around the issue. He mentioned it in his State of the Union. I spoke to a few members this week who addressed some interest in potentially addressing the issue. I was curious if that's something that you're going to talk to your GOP colleague, Speaker McCarthy, about somehow legislatively pursuing a fix for the junk fees that Americans are having to pay, whether it's bank overdraft fees, flight fees, any of that.
Well, House Democrats, we continue to be committed to finding common ground whenever and wherever possible with the other side of the aisle to make progress for the American people. We've repeatedly done that over the last few Congresses, and we remain committed to that principle. And to the extent that some common ground can be found with great leadership from President Biden to address these junk fees that affect all Americans, not just Democrats or not just Republicans, all Americans, then that is certainly something that I think we would embrace. But that is going to have to play itself out through the normal committee process in developing legislation, hopefully in a bipartisan way, that can hit the floor of the House, be sent to the Senate, and ultimately arrive at President Biden's desk for signature. Second room.
Is there a possibility, excuse me, is there a possibility, or do you think that maybe Republicans are trying to run out the clock until it gets closer to the deadline for this budget to possibly get more of a way with the budget?
Well, I think what's in front of us now is Secretary Yellen made clear to us in January that we've hit the debt ceiling and that the Treasury Department's ability to utilize extraordinary measures in order to avoid a catastrophic default on our nation's debt will run out in early June. And so that is what is in front of us right now. The responsible thing to do is to lift the debt ceiling and not hold the American people and our economy hostage to the plans of the extreme MAGA Republicans who want to detonate Social Security and Medicare. That is a responsible thing to do. It should be done sooner rather than later. Oh, actually,
Can you provide an update on the data breach that was revealed yesterday? Have you learned anything new? How has the House responded?
Yeah, I haven't had a briefing this morning about it. Speaker McCarthy and myself put a letter into the public domain. We're going to continue to work on this issue in a bipartisan way, get to the bottom of what happened, figure out the implications of what has occurred, and also we're going to need some real reassurance as to guardrails that are put in place to prevent this type of data breach from ever happening again. It doesn't just impact members of Congress and senators. It will have an adverse impact on hundreds, if not thousands, of staff members, their families, and or the people of the District of Columbia, and that is highly problematic. Third row? Oh, actually, I'll go back over to this side. I try to alternate. Yeah.
this alter the trust level and that relationship?
We continue to have a positive working relationship, but we both understand that in that context of working together whenever and wherever possible for the good of the institution and the American people, there are going to be times that we disagree. There are going to be times that we strongly disagree, as is the case with the release of sensitive security video footage to a known conspiracy theorist. That is highly problematic. And it's not just House Democrats who have pointed that out in the public domain. Senate Republicans have been very clear that they find it problematic as well. And so this is an issue where we will agree to strongly disagree. But it's the extreme MAGA Republicans who are going to have to explain themselves on this issue, because everybody else in the Capitol has a responsible position as it relates to keeping the Capitol safe, not simply for the good of members of Congress and senators, but for staffers who spend a lot of time in this Capitol complex, and for the American people who come here to Washington, D.C. to experience the citadel of our democracy. Two more questions? Yeah.
There were a number of reports out this week that the Biden administration is considering reviving the practice of detaining migrant families who cross the border illegally. I wanted to see if you could weigh in on the fact that that's even being considered by this administration at this point, as well as whether the White House kind of needs to be a little more clear and direct in answering questions about exactly what they're thinking of doing here.
It's not clear to me that it is being considered. What is clear is that House Democrats overwhelmingly, if not uniformly, believe that family separation is not a policy that should be pursued. With respect to communication on the specifics of this issue, there was a conversation between the Homeland Security Secretary and members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and I believe members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. I haven't been fully briefed on that meeting, so I'll refrain from further comment until I hear from our members.
The Senate overwhelmingly passed the Republican crime bill last night. Now it's going to go to President Biden's desk. He said he wouldn't veto it. Are you disappointed by that?
My position is pretty clear, and I spoke extensively about this over the weekend. I support home rule. I support local control by local government over local issues. Thank you, everyone.